record meeting. We are now recording. Okay, thank you, Do, for reminding me about that. So for today's meetup, I would like to keep it short and very focused. So for our agenda, we shall just have some quick introductions, and then we shall recap the system that we are modeling from last time. That is, just go over the notes and then see what we missed, what we had right, and then from there we shall convert that design, that concept into the Hyperledger Fabric architecture. And here we shall be assisted by Umafo. And then lastly, we shall scope out the work that can be done, because it's possible to scope to have everything like designed, but then it can be difficult to implement. So we shall have Ido assist us scope out the work to be done, and then from there we can get started, and then we shall see how to go back from there. So I'll start us off with what we had discussed from last time, and here is our. Let me just close those. So here is our. Here are some notes that we had from last time. I hope they are clear. Yes. So ideally, what we are trying to achieve is to make a land system which can be able to be used by, like say, to keep track of land, and then also to keep track of real estate, so that we're able to use the power of blockchain for purposes of being consistent and of accountability to people. So one of the things we had discussed from last time was some of the features needed. We had discussed and suggested that for blockchain, you might require a few peers here and there. So one of the peers that we had seen was important was the organization that is responsible for grouping property owners. Let's say that we have okay, maybe just to go a bit lower, we have landlords and property owners who actually own the property, but for blockchain system, not all of them can afford to have like a peer that is able to compute and validate those records for themselves. So you find that in most places, you find that there's an organization, maybe they've come together to say that this is our group, which under which we are to champion for our rights. So you find that landlords, property owners, they have like groups whereby they're able to pull funds together and all those things to be able to operate. So we can target those groups, that group land property and land owners, so that they are able to validate records as a single peer, as opposed to each and every landlord having their own peer. So ideally, the property owners are the ones who see who the land is registered under, and then if somebody wants to buy or sell, they have to ensure that there are proper records for that particular piece of real estate that they want to buy. And then we saw that there might also be some users somewhere. Like, let's say if I'm looking for a piece of property, or I'm looking for a piece of land, I am a buyer. So if it's a property, I want to see in which year was that property built, the type of foundation. I saw that in some countries that matters, the type of wood that was used to build that particular property, how big that property is in terms of acreage, the latitude and longitude of that particular piece of property, because it's important for geo records. And then if that person that you want to buy from actually owns the piece of land, or just have to see how that piece of land or property was acquired. Then also you want to know if the taxes due, because here in Kenya you find that to make to transfer land to somebody else, you have to pay stamp duty, which is done by the Kenya Revenue Authority. So you have to see if there were any taxes that were due for a piece of land and just how much will be needed to perform a successful transfer. And then you maybe as a landowner, you want to know if the place has good reputation, because you don't want to be in a place where neighbors are always in conflict and things of the like. So this users can leave reviews. And then if it's just land, does it have a place you can build? That was one bit of it. And then next we have a peer which was suggested was if you want to purchase a piece of land, there is always a need to finance. So you want to figure out how can I pay for this particular piece of land? Do you want it to be a bank, insurance, and all those things? So there was a suggestion to have banks maybe as peers to be able to assist in the area for the area of financing. And then if they're giving a loan, you want to know and you want to be sure, and want to confirm that the loan was for this amount, and the interest for a particular loan, if it's a loan that you took to pay for the piece of land. And then
it was a little short. Maybe sure, you surely have some quick.
You know what happened to hi Umar? What happened to Miller? Looks like he dropped off.
Yes.
Okay. I am back. Sorry, I am back.
He's back.
Okay. Heavy apologies, people. Heavy apologies for what happened.
No worries.
So where was I? Where was I?
So maybe the host bar.
Where was I?
You were talking about we are rounding off on the property owner and about to talk about the finance.
Oh yeah, okay. Thank you.
The ending of pair one.
Okay, thank you. So after pair one, there was the element of financing, whereby you want to determine, say, if you want to buy a piece of land, do you want to purchase it via a bank, and if the bank is willing, that there are proper records that this was paid off using a loan, and then how many, how much in interest. I'm even sharing my screen. Okay, let me share my screen. Sorry. Okay. Share. Yes. Yes. So from there on, you find that there is that there are proper records for loans and interest that are supposed to be paid for that particular piece of land, depending on how you want to finance that piece of land. And then next, another peer was there's the element of regulation. So you want to, so the government always has to be involved in land issues for purpose of things like taxes and taxes and ownership. So you find that if you don't pay tax, the government can take ownership of your land and even sell your property at an auction. and then the government like determines who is the legal owner of a piece of land. They settle the disputes for a particular piece of land. So it's only fair for them to have a peer that they can be able to perform regulation over. And then tier 4, those element of insurance. So if you live in like an apartment, you want to be insured in case anything happens, like you want to have insurance ready. So ideally, that was it for our discussion on how the peers can be structured. And so I will invite Umar, if he's ready, to take us through if this represents the situation on the ground, or if there is need for, if there is need for, if there is need for editing, so that we can proceed to converting this particular system that we had in mind into Hyperledger Fabric architecture. Yeah, so maybe if you feel that there was something which was left out, you can just unmute your mic and say it. Otherwise, I welcome Umar to take us over the next step.
Okay, yeah. Does anyone have something to add, maybe, or questions about what Miller did expose?
None from my end. It's clear.
Okay. Can I have the screen, Ido? Can I share? Yeah, share. Okay, that's good one. Can you hear me? Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can see.
Yes,
Okay.
we can see your screen. We can hear you clearly.
Okay, good, nice. So first things first, thank you, Miller, for exposing. How do I get rid of this? Okay. Good. Okay, thank you for the expose of the land and owner property management. So I'll start by identifying again the actor or the participant of the blockchain network. So like you say, there is buyers and sellers, and there is a banking institution, and there is government agency or regulatory actor. Like, land is state property. So we must take into account that they are at the beginning and at the end of the process. And land management have some edge cases that I don't know, I was thinking about them, but I didn't know how to manage it in a blockchain way. Let me explain. Because as you know, maybe in some cities in our countries, when we are government are still building things like roads. We all see sometimes government is good, if I can say that. Imagine they have a road that we have to they have their properties, and they will relocate peoples in another place. So that case is not they buying the properties, and they can take many properties and merge them. So I don't see this case, but we will act as if this reality doesn't exist in our solution. For we have to start with the core of the system. So for the actors are, as I see it, property owners and buyers and government, just to be simple. And we will add the banking and the insurance actors later. So with these actors defined, I will try to draw some. Just I will make this way. And we are all here. Very good. So each of this actor, but we in the network we are going to build, the network is the property is owned by the governments, because all lands, whether you have a title, I don't know the English, a deed title. Governments. And he will allow access to the buyers and the owners. Let's say there access. Oops. This, and he access to this too. Okay, this is the.
Hi, Umar. Just curious, what software application are you using for this modeling?
I'm on Linux, and the application is dia, like diagram.
Awesome. Okay.
Then the blockchain network is a property of the government, and the buyers and owners are here. So in the scope of the Hyperledger Fabric, I will share with you, or will read with you the documentation. I'll share it here, so maybe, or not. Where is the thing? Oh, shit. No.
Do you paste that into the Zoom chat window? Do you want to share that through the Zoom chat window?
I was searching. Okay, it's here. I was searching for the window. So this will, not this one, the network. Okay, it is that one I was seeking. So it's the second one.
Okay.
So Hyperledger Fabric network is this mess you are seeing. So we are trying to decouple it and decompose it as we go along. So the beginning of the network creation, we are starting with the government, which is the organization in green, is going to set up the network. So when he's set up the network, he will create he will create the chain code to say how people are going to interact in this network, and he is going to create a consortium, and the consortium is going to tell which actors are participating in which interaction. And other thing that is very important is a channel of communication. So the channel is a private pipe, or a private channel, actually. The simpler, it's a private channel of communication between some members of the network. I'll give you an example. Maybe the insurance and the banking company will want a private channel to discuss among themselves, to discuss the amount of the fees, or some, I don't know, some regulatory, or some maybe the government make some operation, maybe the government have control over the fees the insurance company is making on the buyers, on the selling activities. So that is a private communication, and the buyer and owner doesn't have to participate in those negotiation and transaction. And in another channel, inside the same blockchain, Hyperledger Fabric blockchain network, in another channel, the government is supervising the buying and the selling activities among the buyer and the owner, among the citizens, because of the buyer and the owner are citizens. So the concept of channel is very important and very specific to Fabric. So I don't know any other blockchain who have that kind of partitioning mechanism. So we are going to do that. This is the first. Let me just put it here. This is just the first channel. It will be green. Yes. And it will be just. Okay, this is the first network, the first channel. I just put it here. Channel 1 between the buyers, sellers, and go. So this is the first channel, and I'm going to draw the second channel. I'll just try to make it a little more clear. Should. Okay. So this is the first channel. I will just change, make it clear. Yes. And the channel 2 is between banks, insurance company, and governments. Okay. Sorry, I have some difficulties here. Okay, so the second channel is just for the peers of the bank and of the insurance company. We will not talk about them for now. We'll do it at a later time before we finish. We are coming back to them. So all these groups and channel and communication device are inside the blockchain, the network. So I just send it back. Okay, so we have the blockchain owners, which is the governments. We have the blockchain participants. Here we have buyers, owners, which are citizens with different permissions. And we have the bank and the insurance company, which will come later. Okay. And here. Okay. So this this is the simplest I can see from what we have here. So we have the buyer, the seller, the landowners, and we have the banking and the financing. Miller, or you guys, do you see some other things I have to add? No?
No, it's fine.
I think it's good. You've covered all the parties that were, all the participants that were listed by.
Yeah. Okay. So, most important, the channel are here. The channel Fabric blockchain, we have the first brick, which is the network, the channel. And now we are going to create let's call it the chain code. So the chain code is defining the rule of interaction among the members of a channel. Each channel must have a chain code to state the rules. So chain code 1 is for the green blockchain. So the green channel. It is green really. And we have, can we duplicate this? Okay, so we have chain code 1 and 2. Actually, the path must be this. Each members can only communicate with this channel through the chain code. Object, okay. So the chain code is owned also by the governments. So I'll drag some row here and some other row there. And the chain code himself is going to interact with, excuse my drawing. The chain code is going to interact with the blockchain via this. Can we put it here? Okay. So we have first we have the peers, number 1. 2, we have the channels. 3, we have the chain codes or smart contract in other. And second, we have the consortium mechanism or the permission. Maybe it is, let's call it permissions. We'll come to that later. So the government for this network, the government, which rights for you do you think the government should have on the properties? Someone?
Sorry, what was the question?
What?
Can you say the question again?
I am in the rights defining step. So what can the government do in this network? Because I think the first thing you have to do is to define parcels of land and assign it to citizens.
I think it goes a bit beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
It directs inheritance or mapping from what
Yeah,
government
inheritance.
does, what government does right now, manually
Mm-hmm.
and offline. First of all, like you said, government owns all land, you know, in a
Mm-hmm.
particular territory. So there's some kind of mapping exercise. I think there's something called a cadastral map based on some of the work.
Cadastro, yes.
So there's some kind of mapping exercise. There's usually also some kind of enumeration exercise, which is identifying each property and each property type and mapping it to a specific section or segment of that geographical map. So if you have an area, say a city area like say Nairobi or something, different sections of that city, you could then say, in this area we have 300 properties and 700 barren lands, you know, something like that. You know, buildings, lands, estates, and stuff like that. That the exercise that does that is the enumeration. So if like I was saying earlier, we have to inherit or directly map from that offline process. Are we saying that we want the government to have the ability to, first of all, access a registry of all properties, a registry of all geographic, I don't know what they're called. Are they called GIS boundaries or something like that? You know, so for instance, over here in Nigeria, plots have a specific size and they are bounded by geographic beacons, right? So
Yeah.
so sometimes they may be four-sided. You know, they may not necessarily be a rectangle or a square, but they are usually bounded on four sides. Sometimes they may have more than four sides, but at the end of the day, whatever shape the polygon takes, there's usually a size, a total square meters, a total area in square meters that represents a plot, and then you can multiply that if it's a particularly big land, multiply that by x, a factor of x to get how big the land should be on. So that's what I can say. So I don't know what subset of all the powers that the government has in an offline setting and currently enjoy today. What subset of those powers do we want to enable in our network? That can then help us inform what rights we want to give them on this network.
In the simplest form, I think in the simplest form, the government, the first thing is to put parcel of lands at a disposal of a citizen or a group of citizens.
Okay.
So it's like in the blockchain, the concept, the Bitcoin creation step. So before people can transact Bitcoins, they have to exist. In the blockchain, in the Bitcoin blockchain, it's existing via mining process. It is created automatically by an algorithm. But here, an algorithm can't create lands or assign it to people. It's the government to create the assets.
Okay. Represent the
So
real assets.
can we just, yeah, can we take asset creation? Can we?
Okay. Thank you.
Or
So, yeah, I agree.
is it land? What is the right wording?
Well, I think it's more. I think it's. I think the general term, if I'm correct, is if there's any property expert here, please correct me. I think the general term is which can in some instances refer to property. Property is the general term. Sometimes property can be
property creation.
Yes, sometimes property can be land, can be buildings, can be a single apartment in a block of apartments which represents the building, you know, and so on. So I think the general term is
Property, okay. And what else can he do?
Maybe there's the element of tax. So like defining things like stamp duty and the likes.
The what? Sorry?
The element of
Take
tax.
over ownership.
There's the element of tax because
Tax collection.
yeah.
But here in the system, should we put the tax collection here? I don't think so, because I maybe in this second part, the government take back ownership of the properties if the tax aren't paid, can be represented here in some self-assignment of a property. If the government can come and say this previous property belonging to Abu Miller now belongs to the governments of Nairobi, of Kenya. So it is a process of taking it back.
Okay, I guess that's fine then. That's fine.
Because it cannot just delete it because it is a blockchain. So it is not, it cannot delete it. It just assign it to himself. But in the tax, for the tax verification, collection and other, it's out of the, it must be out of the system or in other blockchain system.
Okay, that's fine then.
And assignments. This is the rights or property assignment. Because it is what he is doing. He is just assigning to himself or to another citizen in the auction procedure. See? Do you agree?
Yes, yes, that is fine.
Okay.
Unless Deverick and Coco have anything to say.
No, no.
Okay.
No. Well, I wish we could have in the forum an expert who could lay down all these terms for us quickly.
I'm sorry?
I only wish we could have an expert who could lay down these terms for us quickly. Would have considered that early.
Maybe we can do that afterward.
We could consider looking into that.
Okay, so we can just say it is the two rights that we have with the government, and we can come back to this later.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and for the
this is Deverick. I think when last week our last meeting we were talking about taxes. I guess it was a standpoint of is that information that are transactions that apply to the land. So if the government, like when they assess the tax for that year on the land, is that information that the buyer wants to see associated, with the land, and if the taxes, if what the taxes were. So for decision making, a lot of people look at that as a factor, like what I'm looking at as far as what are my property taxes typically are going to run me, and so I don't know if it would be considered a transaction on that particular entity, because it's an assessment, and whether or not even if we don't even mark whether or not it was actually paid or what have you, but the information that goes along with the property having that tax there might be something we might look at. But I understand that you want to keep it simple.
Yeah, and if I if I would like to buy a property, why? Sure, I would like to know if the buyer if the seller have paid all the tax in this property. Yes, you're right. Because the government can came back later and ask it to me.
Right.
But in we can do some kind of safe mechanism by saying buyers and owners can agree on all things, the price, the payment methodology, but the government is the one who, because the land belongs to him, the government is the one who validate the transaction, because or of it is an automatic mechanism. Because maybe we don't want people to know some kind of, because of privacy or some type of consideration like that. We don't want to know if I have paid all my tax, because it is something private. I don't want people to know. But the transaction may be just rejected by the government, saying this owner cannot sell this land. And just by speaking of it, there are some kind of some land that people cannot sell, like the agricole lands. For in my country, there is some land that the government borrow you, or what's the you borrow it from the government, so you cannot sell it. You cannot sell it. You see. So
It's.
Perhaps I should mention. So there's a question. There's a question in Adilu's paste bin link that says who legally owns a piece of property. So technically speaking, as far as I know, government owns all land forever. Yeah. Government actually never transfers ownership of land from themselves to anyone. What they do is when you buy a piece of land, either from the government, you get a lease. In Nigeria here, it's a 99-year lease. So it's
you're right.
Yeah, so technically, government owns all land in perpetuity. Extreme cases, government can, technically speaking, override ownership. They can collect it back. Anything can happen. To be honest, it's within their power. But by and large, no government wants to be in the bad books of their citizens. So that doesn't happen very often. But legally speaking, land, whether sold or leased out or transferred from person to person, from seller to buyer, ultimately still belongs to the government. That power of taking it back always belongs to the government. All right, that's what I know. That's what and I assume it replicates across country.
You're right. The land is the property forever of the government. Yeah. Okay. So you are finding our vision. Thank you.
All right. So I mentioned that in the context of what you were talking about, that how do you define who owns the ownership of property and all that. So I just mentioned that.
Yeah, because we are saying, we the citizen, I own this land, but maybe
it's like really a superficial ownership. You can take a loan against it on the bank.
As you had mentioned, the term is lease. Yes, lease, the ownership remains the government. Any other entity is lease. Now we'll have to define the time in this case. How long does it take? Because it could be different from country to country.
Country to country.
2 o'clock.
All right, cool.
So it's 2 o'clock. Okay. So to come back to the owner, you have the right to, let's say, sell it or transfer ownership. What is the term you want to use?
Leasing.
So I'm sorry.
Sorry, if I got you well, you saying the right to
sell or to transfer ownership?
Yes, I believe that holds because when you own a piece of land, as we've defined as leased from the government, you still have the right to sell it. You can sell it. You can.
Oh yes, that's the term there. Yes. Sell.
Which the sell?
So
yes.
You can. So, there are a number of terms: deed of assignment, deed of sublease, deed of something, deed of fine. So quite a number of things you can do.
So basically, the way I would look at it, so from the government, and as you said, we've all agreed that everything starts with the government and ends with the government. So the owner is the government with the cadastral registration and stuff that takes place. Okay. Then in between, when the government is the first movement, or I can say the first transaction from government to any entity is leasing. Okay. Then let's agree on the terms here. Then after any other activities that will happen from the first owner to any other owner, will be using the terms selling and buying. Because I know in between there are some guys who will use the term leasing. Okay, because you could lease it. You might have been the first owner and you would want to lease it to some other entity. Let's use the leasing term for only government transferring a property to any owners. Any other transfer in between there, will say it is selling and buying.
So you then replace property creation by property leasing.
Leasing, it's from government to the first owner. Okay,
so
I'm not an expert, but I'm just trying to clarify terms here, so we can all
like,
agree.
I like it. Yeah, I like it. So that we have a clear set of terms and we know what it means when it's used.
Yeah, the terms are important. So the first is leasing. So do you have the property creation and leasing?
Yes. So they will create and they will lease. Yes, exactly. That's the government.
Okay. Yeah, that's the government.
They can also there is a possibility of also now I'm not sure about the terms, but if they want to take back the any property, I don't know. What's the contrary of leasing for the English speaking guys?
Yeah.
I'm not an English guy trying to clarify terms.
So let's just
or we can stick to those two initially.
For now.
Okay.
We can be sure there are plenty of consideration in land creation and leasing and ownership and transfer and all. And just since we are only technical guy here, we are trying to do our best, and maybe after speak this.
Let's roll.
Okay, so the owner are just can just sell properties. I don't see what can they do after that. The land, yes, view who the land is registered under, selling. So they can see these informations. And the buyer, yes, able to buy. So those are the permission. Do you see anyone else? Any other permission that we can add?
I think that's sufficient. We can go ahead to
Okay.
finalize. Thank you.
You're welcome. So we have the peers, the channel, the smart contract, the permission here. Okay, so we are going to have what do we call it? Each peer, each node. We are going to place the node here. I have some. I can just. It's not as fine as it is here. Okay, yeah. Maybe I can.
Hello, this is Deborah. I'd like to mention something else. I'm not sure how it works or the process is in your country, but there's also with the owners, the property being passed down to family members once the owner
Heritage.
deceased.
And yes, that is also an manage it here because it is the process by which a property owned by one person is now owned by 3 or 4 or many more. See, and in this case, I don't know. Yeah. I'll just edge cases, inheritance, help me here. I'm not. It is an A or an E. I don't know.
A, yeah.
A. Okay.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay. Plan requisition, like road building or other thing, agriculture, because that happens.
Yeah, I guess that's now the term for the third rights for government requisition. Yeah.
Yes, it is the right to take back the property. So we are going just to have these edge cases here visible so we can know that we haven't finished yet. Okay, so now we are on. I'd like to go into the technically the fabric specific technical blocks. which is the peers and the computer, the orderers, and all those things. If we see it here in the channel for a consortium, this we see the orderer is the first block we put in the blockchain network. Here, the O is the piece of is going to order the transactions by the timestamp, so that we know which transaction has been made before the other one, and if the transaction are and how to collect it in the database, in the state database. Because it is important, the order of the transaction is important, because let's say we are in a monetary or a financial blockchain like Bitcoin or whatever. It is important, if I have $10 and I give two to someone else, to know which operation and which operation has happened first. Because if the guy have $0 in his account and now he have $2, it is important to know at which step he have the zero or the $2, because he can make any other, he can buy or whatever he can do. In our land example, you cannot sell a property before you have it, and that information can come from the date of the leasing or of the buying or of the land allocation by the government or someone else. So the orderer is the first piece that come into the blockchain, the Fabric blockchain network. So we are going to represent it here with or 01. In a network, we shouldn't have one single piece of hardware alone. We should always have two, at least two orderer or two peer who are running together in case of one of it fails. Because if you have what they call a single point of failure, and if the orderers is down, all the network is down. So we have here the orderer number 1, and we will put an orderer number 2 somewhere here. And they all are going to collectively participate transaction. I think I have to put this here. Okay. The second one is here.
Umar,
Yes, sir.
there's a high-pitched sound coming from your background. I hope something is not about to explode inside you.
Okay, let me just.
Like a plane is about to take off, or an electric kettle is boiling or something.
Is it better?
Actually, just go on. No, it's still there. But it's on.
It is the washing machine my sister is doing.
Oh, that's fine.
So the second order is here, and we stop it now here. Okay, so the orders are maintaining the health of the system. And the second step is to have the peers coming, the channel forming. The channel is already here in green for the classic or channel, and green is yet to be built. Then we add the ledger, the peers are coming, the peers and the ledger. The ledger is the ledger is is important. We are going to see it for in some minutes. Okay, so the ledger must be something a little more common. And the ledger will be here. And people are going to transact with him via the SDK. But this is okay. So the ledger have the chain code installed in it. And here, like as you see, the peer is here, the ledger is here. So I'm going to give it a name, peer 1. Okay. And the database is yeah, database is here. Okay. Okay, so the database is a point we are going. I would like to expand on the database. Okay, so to introduce it, by default, the Fabric network we build in the tutorial and all come with a simple database, which is the level D, the common one. You can use it outside of Hyperledger Fabric. It is a NoSQL database or whatever. It is a very simple one. It is a database based on the key value function. You have a key, and beside it you have a value. So, but for our need, it won't fit. It is very, very simplistic database, really. It is more of an example or something very, very simple. But for our need, as you can see here, okay. Okay, for our need is that we have many information for each device. A land have associated information in it. The years it was allotted. Maybe the type of the soil, if it is sand or if it is something else, the latitude and longitude, the tax not for now, or is it sellable because the tax are paid, so we can sell it or not, or is it sellable because it isn't an agricole land, or is it sellable or not for other because there is some different type of land property, land title. In French, we have what we call titre foncier and bail. I don't know the English for those. So if you have some type of land title, you cannot resell it, or it is something that you have to precise. So our data associated with land are very rich. So we have to use a database that can reflect the richest of our data. So here we are going to use a CouchDB database because you can store data in a JSON format. And that is also important because it is if we make the wrong choice by using level DB, we will have some problem if you want to input this type of information. So I'm going to add this here so we can be sure that we will see it each time we CouchDB. This is a NoSQL database too, but it is worth mentioning that. Okay. So I'm going to. No. So these are the pieces that we have or that we should have. Here we are going to continue. We have, yes, the piece, the ledger, the smart contract, and we can add some other peers. But I think that we have the basic of our network. We can add some other peers somewhere down here. So because it is a network which is going to be very, very solicited by the citizens, because there will be at the simplest, there will be plenty of reading activity. Like I saw a property and I want to know to which guy it belongs to. And then we will have some other privacy concern, like do anyone will have the right to see anyone property owner name? And that we can see it at a later time, but well, I think that we have the basic of our network. We're going to find it by sharing the source of this DR file, and we will come for the next session with something more. Let's say we will try to build it by going in the real code with the real Docker file, the server, and try to see what we can come with. Just the last thing is, I think this is no. No. I'm looking for a telephone. Okay. No worry. Just to precise that we are going to communicate to the peers with Go SDK or Java SDK here. I forgot one last piece, which is the certification authority, because each participant of this network must be certificate of maybe yes. Sorry. Each participant must be identified. The certificate authority is outside of the network. It is anyone which will have to get a certificate from this guy. The network administrator from the government will have to acquire certificate here, so we can know that there are really who they pretend to be. So anyone couldn't grant anyone a title. So I will be very glad to create some 30 title for myself. The owner to have to get certificates. Okay, the buyer too. Just this. Okay. Sorry, I want to make it clean before closing it. Okay, so I think we now have what we need. Okay. So do anyone see something else? Maybe we can add. I hope maybe I forget something.
Maybe if I can ask the certificate authority, since the government is the owner of all the land, who certifies the government that they can issue out land?
Who certifies that the government can create lands and lease them?
Yeah.
No one. It is the government. Actually, it is. If you go all the way up here, you see the network is initiated by someone. See?
Yes.
And that someone is maybe it won't be necessarily be the government himself. Maybe it will be a company like mine, which is Atos. Atos is a multinational company who is working with governments a lot. So maybe it is the government is going to hire Atos or is going to hire us, Hyperledger Africa, and we are going to build the system for them. But he will be at the end, if you build the system, we are going to give it back to the government and he will go to operate it. Or maybe we can make another contract so for the operational aspect of the blockchain. But the owner is the government. Because maybe there is, in this case, it is some owned blockchain. But if it is with enterprises, it is collectively owned by all the participants. But here, all the nodes and all the things belongs, I think, to the government at the end, because all the assets belong to the government. I don't know, maybe you guys are also.
Well, I agree with you at up to some extent. Huh? But the concern that our colleague is just raised there has to do mainly with when we say certificate authority, on our technical understanding, we understand that this is the system admin, if I could say so, the guy behind all the technical setup and all that. But we have to put in mind that this entity, this certificate authority entity, can be a part of the government. But now in our modeling process here, I guess that's how Umar is looking at it. In our modeling part here, the certificate authority regarding a private company or is it part of the public services, it remains as a different entity in the whole modeling that we are doing here. It can be private, it can be public, but it has to be a separate entity. I think that's how Umar is looking at it.
Yes, right? That's exactly what I was trying to say.
Thank you. It's
obviously
much clearer now.
in a setup, an example could be in some countries, you'll find this certificate authority is the Ministry actually of Lands. Okay. And under the Ministry of Land, you could have the IT department that manages maybe this network. So in that case, that IT department or the Ministry of Lands become the certificate authority. Okay. Or if the government outsources this activity to a private company that is managing the IT part of it, then in that case, that private entity becomes the certificate authority. That's my view on this. Because we have to separate the technical management of the system and the actual leasing or creation of property that the government does.
Yeah, like I said, like you just said, you have to separate the technical ownership and the real owner of the system, because the one who is building it is not necessarily the one who owns it. Maybe if the government is advanced enough, you have departments, technical department who can build this system. Maybe they don't have the know-how or the knowledge to build them themselves. That's why.
All right, that's fine. I think it's very clear now. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
And I want to just state one thing. In Africa right now, in Africa, maybe anywhere else in the world they have already do it, but in Africa we are starting to do the biometric identification on the identity card. That those identity cards have a chip in them which have some kind of signature of the government. Maybe we can find a system where we can use the chip inside the identity card to identify ourselves. That will be our certificate, and that is already signed by the government. Because I think, I'm not sure they have done it themselves, but there's something that exists already that we can manage to use, maybe.
Great. That is fine. Yes.
So, I'll give you the floor so you can maybe add things or do the wrap up, or it is Ido.
All right. So Umar, the next time you try to murder my name like that, I'm gonna find you. So don't forget, I give you the shortcut, right? Just take the first two characters, the first two letters, and ignore the rest. ID is a good name for me. ID. That's fine.
ID. Okay. ID.
All right. Thank you very much, Umar. Great job. I remember a few hours, well, slightly over an hour ago, when this screen we're looking at was empty. Now that there's all sorts of lines and shapes and polygons, all over the place and stuff connecting. You drew it like a master. Thank you. All right. So I just have a question to ask, and perhaps Coco Landry hinted at that earlier. Did everyone flow along with the session? You know, did it make sense? That's what I'm getting at. Did we all flow? This is a question to the general house. Did we enjoy it? Did we flow? Was it meaningful? Or was it cryptic and programmer and geek speak?
I thought it was very good. I'm familiar with Hyperledger Fabric, so
Okay.
putting it all together as far as just a diagram with as it pertains to land ownership is very good.
All right. Thank you. Any other opinions from the house? All right. Let's just go on. So, in terms of project organization, so I tend to take a more product approach, a more product centric approach, right? So if you think about a land registry or a property management digital product, right? At the very high level and from the perspective of the majority of people that will interact with that product, who obviously are not tech inclined or tech savvy, you start to see how it makes sense to follow a product mindset, right? To follow a product mindset to the development of such a such a service. Where I'm going is there's an exercise that I like to carry out usually. Okay, it's an offshoot of the design thinking process. Sometimes it can be seen as something like a game actually. All right, where we allow everyone to see how technical teams ideally build products first before committing a line of code to the code base, how they build product concepts. So I'd like us to carry out such an exercise now. But before we do that, let me share my screen and show us what I typically run through, the process that I typically use to run through a product development cycle, okay? If I share this screen and I choose Evernote, can you guys see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, so you see something called the product development process. So it starts with, if you look at the very highest level as well, Evernote doesn't yet have collapsible line items. So if you look at the highest level, we have questions. What should we build? I need to mute someone. Participants. Umar, please permit me to mute you. You can unmute yourself if you want to say something. Right. So the questions: what should we buy? What should we build? Why should we build it? And for whom should we build it, right? Design thinking helps us answer those questions, okay? The second question, how should we build what we want to build? Now, I'm a proponent of the agile methodology and its attendant benefits. Somewhere in here is where blockchain falls in, because blockchain is an approach, is a functional approach to a functional approach among many alternatives to achieving an end result, right? Again, if you think about it critically, concerning scope, a blockchain, technically speaking, is meant to provide some kind of back-end service to a product, right? So, ideally, you would have that somewhere, you know, in your architecture like we did today, you know, and so on and so forth. Third question is, how should we release, you know, CI/CD, DevOps, you know, and that whole new paradigm of product delivery. You know, so this is like a high-level product development process that I use for both my clients and my internal digital product development at the company. Shooting out from this, I then have, like I said, that exercise that we carry out where we learn how to map features in our heads. We've kind of done some of it in the session that, that Umar coordinated a few minutes ago, but having that high level picture helps all of us to be clear on what we are building and how we are building. Before I move away from this screen, does anyone have any questions about this? Or should I go into detail?
Yes, please go into the details.
Okay. So if you take any of these, for instance, there are 4 questions answered by this process. What should we build? Why should we build it? And for whom should we build it? Kind of think of those 3 questions as sub of one, you know, take them together as one question. The second question is how, okay? And the third is how should we release? First question is how should we build? Third question is how should we release? And last is how should we support, you know, and so on and so forth. Design thinking is an excellent, you know, approach to answering these questions, because I used to be a hands-on programmer back in the days when there was no distinction between back-end and front-end, like these young developers of nowadays enjoy so much. Back in the days when JavaScript had only one flavor, it was vanilla JavaScript. There was no sort. Well, there were 2. There was VBScript back in the days that Microsoft was trying to push, but JavaScript was JavaScript. You know, you know, when it was
JavaScript close.
You know, so I've both been a hardcore coder, and I've worked closely, very, very closely with hardcore coders, you know, hands-on technical people. And I can tell you that many times we techies, we geek-minded people, sometimes fall into the trap of building technology for the sake of technology. So sometimes we might have a fantastic product idea and we start to build it, or we start to get immersed in it mentally, but somewhere along the line, we get carried away with the technology and we discover, oh, I started this with Laravel 2.0, but Laravel 2.5 has come out, or Laravel 2.1 or 2.2 has come out, and there are these new features, and I suddenly feel that those features, you know, I must include them in the new thing. And I start to worry about technology, forgetting that at the end of the day, whether I use Laravel 2.0 or Laravel 7.0, or I use Python 3.6 or Python 2.7, or I use .NET Core, or I use .NET 4.5, at the end of the day, the end user will care the least about what technology I'm using, but will care the most about 2 things. 1, whether that product addresses a core point of need that user needs, and 2, whether that product experience is as frictionless as possible. In order to answer these 2 questions, that's where design thinking comes in. Design thinking is an excellent methodology for helping us to come out of ourselves and kind of channel the spirit or the essence of our users. You know, come out of ourselves and look at problem spaces and their potential solutions, potential alternative solutions, from the perspective of the users who will use those solutions at the end of the day. Now, design thinking itself started off as, a movement or as a very narrow space, but has become what you might call a family of techniques nowadays. So if you, depending on the organization you're talking to, almost every organization has a flavor of design thinking. SAP has a slightly different flavor from the IBM model, the P model, the Oracle model. All of them have tweaked the generic model and created their own individual models. However, what you can take away from it are two key aspects or goals. One of them is the research aspect, and the second is the design. And those two things are chronological steps that follow that same order. First of all, you carry out research on your user base. You want to understand exactly who they are. You want to get under their skin. If you can't afford it, you want to go to their offices, sit down and observe them. If you can't afford it, like I said, just sit down and observe them. Observe their everyday stresses, their everyday disappointments, their everyday frustrations, as well as their everyday highs, all of those things, and then design something that does not take away from their positive moments, but eliminates their negative moments. So that's essentially what this is. Of course, when you break it down, you get the business goals section, where you start out by defining what the business goals are, and the end result of that process is something called the business model canvas. Okay, and a list of business goals, and you define the personas. So who are the people that try to achieve these goals? What are the demographics? Are they millennials? Are they Generation Xers? Are they baby boomers? And so on and so forth. Are they seniors? What are their behavior? What are their personality types, attitudes, needs, challenges? And then you end with a question. Is usually in innovation circles, they're usually abbreviated to HMWs. HMWs stands for how might we, okay? And how might we is a template that is a template question that innovators used to say after researching into a particular persona to understand those people's challenges and needs. You then ask, how might we help them eliminate this goal? How might we help them sustain this positive aspect of what they're currently doing? The second set of steps is a further breakdown and a further elaboration of the first set of goals. So the first set of goals you defined are business goals for the team, organization, or for the business unit. This second time, you are identifying individual goals for each of the personas that you defined in step 2. So you pick each of these guys and you define a specific set of goals that those guys want to achieve. So when you have that set of goals, you then define the journey or the set of steps that each of those users must take to achieve that goal. And by doing that, you automatically have something called a story map. Let me mark this point and quickly share another screen with us that shows us an example story map. Obviously, we won't be able to do that today, but I just want to show so that we can have somewhere to start off in the next session. Stop this and share again. And let's come here. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay. Now this is a product that I love very much. Stories on Board. If anybody has been part of a story mapping exercise before, which is typically a very hands-on physical exercise where in an office space, you have a wall that you've dedicated for your product or for your project, and you have sticky notes that you stick in a particular pattern on that wall that represent the breakdown of work items for that particular work. So if I were to take, 1 second, please. If I were to use this, for instance, okay, you would get, okay. I had no idea that I was signed out. It's been a while. 1 second, please. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. That doesn't look good. Okay, so I may need to contact support. Let's go back to the, it's a picture I can show that. Let's go back to the, Evernote, okay? So ideally, the end result of that would be a story map, which details for each of the personas the set of steps that need to be taken to achieve. So that need to be taken to achieve that goal. So you notice that up until now, all of this is high level use case / user story modeling, okay? And it helps us because further down the line, in terms of achieving consensus on what needs to be built, in terms of achieving consensus on the priority of things to build, in terms of achieving consensus on how much to what technical depth each of those items needs to be implemented. In other words, what's the trade-off? What's the trade-off for technical depth that we want to take? All of those decisions are things that we agree together while building the story map. And then you have your empathy maps, which are also a part of the persona definition. And then the end result of the entire research phase is an idea prioritization grid, okay, which lists, which helps us map or compare ideas for their possible fit or suitability, based on how much impact is it likely to give us versus, or impact or returns on investment versus the effort required. If it's a high impact, low effort idea, then obviously it will be voted higher than a low impact, high effort idea, and so on and so forth. We then follow that up with designs. At that point, again, before committing to code, we are committing to defining what the user interfaces might look like. Don't forget, this is research and design. So this is still part of that end user immersion phase of the project, where we're still in the user's environment and we're designing screens that answer the how might we's, so that by the time we have sketches of those screens, low-fi stands here for low fidelity, high-fi here stands for high fidelity. Low-fi means things that are sketched out, usually with a very, very high level of, a very, very low level of detail. So you can actually even use your pen on paper or a tissue or some kind of, like people like to say restaurant tissue or serviette or something, and take a picture of that, and that's lo-fi wireframe. That's fine enough, it's good enough to start with. And then if you have approval on the lo-fi, you then graduate to the hi-fi, okay? At this point, you then have enough to start to think about, you have enough detail, enough validation, which is more important. It's more about validation, enough validation to start to think about the how. Until we've answered the questions of what, why, and for whom, it usually doesn't make sense to start to think about how, okay? So when we then get to the how, in here, somewhere in this process is where our blockchain development fits into the overall architecture of the solution, okay? Because at the end of the day, the blockchain will expose to us a set of APIs, usually REST APIs that can be consumed by the front end of our application, right? And then that's what this entire section is about. So you start with iterative agile development. Sometimes you can skip the business case if you've done a good job with the upper level, and the product vision as well. But what you really, really want to do here, you want to start with your story map, which we would have seen a few moments ago. Before the next meeting, I'll make sure that my account is back up. You choose which agile framework you want to use. I like something called the Scrum Band, which is a hybrid of Scrum and Kanban frameworks, and that's that. You define a working agreement, define your squads, and so on and so forth. So that's basically what this is. The rest is just operational stuff. and we are almost out of time, okay? But can we drop it here and agree to pick it up from the story mapping session that I was not able to show us to? And we agree from there for the next meeting.
Thank you very much for that that elaborate session on how to go about design thinking. So I believe we can stop there for today, and then for the next meeting, we can pick it up from here and then determine just who are we building this for, so that you're not just building it for the sake of using blockchain or because you're a Hyperledger meter. So we can stop there, and then we shall. Pardon?
Sorry, Miller, if I can add, maybe we can make some 10-minute session to see this.
Sorry, it might be my
Beside
network. I'm hearing.
Hello? Just
having difficulty. Is it Omar talking?
Yeah, it is me. Yes.
Okay.
I was just saying if you can see how to sell, what are the selling arguments for this thing we are building, and how can we sell it? Some 10-minute session maybe the next time.
Okay. Okay.
Well, this is Coco. This is I did attend one of the first chat sometime back, but not the first chat regarding the design of the solution that we're working on. My point, I just wanted to clarify a few things before we close off. We're building this as just a use case for the group to get to understand how the Hyperledger platform works. Is that the case?
Yes, I've done a section on the building blocks of Hyperledger Fabric in one of the meetup.
Yes, and also this can now, once you do an implementation, it can now be easy to have more members come in to support the Hyperledger movement, so that we are able to build things that matter.
My understanding is if we are building this with the community, then this will obviously be an open source kind of solution that could, as Mila mentioned, that could it could be an additional reason that more guys who could come on board to help in the development, I guess.
Yes, yes.
That's the approach. Okay. That said, I think we will have, if we are really looking at having a solution that responds to the needs of the market, if I can say that, we will have to consider having on board someone who really understands the whole setup that has to do with real estate and land management and all that. Because if we start from a very shaky ground, I know definitely we can have a prototype, but it's just my point of view. I think that it's really important that we can have someone
I agree.
in the community, or even ourselves, we can consult actually with the guys outside who understand exactly this market.
Yes,
and I agree. That's a very good idea.
So what do we guys decide about it?
You see, when doing the agile thing that Ido is taking us through, is that first bit for doing research. So I believe for the next session that can tie in with the research element of what Ido is trying to present to us, and then you can move on from there on a very firm foundation.
I think there is, okay, so from all ends, I guess we all have to do a little bit of research just to have those terms at hand.
Yes, yes.
I think that's what my comments on it.
Okay. Can you guys hear me?
It's 3 o'clock.
Let's do that.
Yeah, so I believe for the next session, where Ido will be taking us through the design thinking, there's a bit of research. So as we plan for that session, we shall try to have somebody on board who can help with that and even improve the quality of the content that shall be coming out of that meetups, that like you're building things which matter and things which are usable, so that people are also enthusiastic to be able to join in on like what you're trying to do, building the community, in addition to providing solutions which actually matter. Yeah. So I believe that is the end of the meeting. So I'd like us to do one more thing. I forgot to do the intros as you're starting. So for this last bit, I would like all of us to turn on our videos, and then we can say our names and what we do as we close the meeting. And also, I'd like to give a vote of thanks for Devrick. Devrick has been with us for all the meetups ever since we began. So thank you, Devrick.
Oh, you're welcome.
Awesome.
I was thinking about I was trying to start my video. I think
Yeah. So as you're doing that,
I'm using.
So we can start with Devrick, and then you can like show us your face. We see you, tell us what you do,
Yeah.
and then as you give your shooting, your parting shots. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Let can you have someone else go first? I'm gonna join from my phone. My laptop is having this issue with the camera. I'm not sure what's going on.
Okay. So Coco, you can take us through. You can like do an intro. Sorry.
Well, Coco Landry is my name. I'm based in Kenya, but I work for Labware US. We mainly deal with laboratory information management systems. And aside that, I do e-health systems consultancy with my company, ICOLab, in Burundi and DRC. Yeah, so my interest in Hyperledger is mainly with, we're working currently on an application that could at some point look into leveraging on the blockchain technology. So we're still assessing which platform is best fit. And there was no better place than this forum to get firsthand, understanding of the technical side of what it takes to build at least a minimum prototype that guys could interact with. So yeah, and so far I can say that I'm in the right forum.
Thank you. We're glad to have you.
Well, I could share my link, my LinkedIn profile for guys who would want maybe to know further details about what I do, and yeah, and maybe we, at some point we could always have a side community project that we can always collaborate on.
Awesome. Please share it in the chat. Awesome. So next we can have Brian. Brian joined us while we were midway.
Okay, how are you? I'm new to programming. Hello.
Yeah, hello. We can hear you.
Hello.
Hello, we can hear you.
Hello.
Yeah, go on.
Hello.
Brian, we can hear you. So you can also turn on your video.
Okay.
Unmute.
Yeah. was saying I'm new to Hyperledger, so I'm just getting curious. What is it all about inside the language and the coding part? So if I'm like a mentor, it will be highly appreciated because I'm trying to do things on my own, but it's so difficult. Yeah, that's what I can say.
Awesome. We are glad to have
Hello?
you, and we are glad to have you. And as you go along development, we hope that you will be able to catch up. Awesome. Thank you, Umar. Unmute.
Us now, admit it, then to you. Okay, do you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Nice to meet you all there. I'm Umar Fall, and I'm the community lead of the Hyperledgers of Senegal. So I'm a French speaker. I'm doing activities in French most of the time, but I'm recently joined Miller in this adventure, if I can call it that, because it is very interesting and it is a very acute problem we have here in Africa. So it is really a pleasure to join you. My main interests in blockchain technology are in the decentralized identity, all what identification and all the things. So right now I'm working in the Hyperledger Fabric technology, but I intend to go explore the indie blockchain because it is specialized on identification. So, well, that's me. I'm glad to be here with you all.
Awesome. Thank you. Next, we can have Devrik.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm living in the United States. I have traveled to Uganda 2 years ago. And that was an amazing trip. That was my first time ever to Africa. Long flight, but it was a great experience. And I was thinking about with technology and now just having the ability to just be a part of this group is truly amazing. I never would have thought that be able to work on a project with those so far away from you, and I take pleasure in it. And I think we have a good group here. I'm a telecommunications specialist for a company, and I've been in IT for about over 20 years. So it's been I've been passionate about it. Always keep myself up to date about what's going on in the world. So blockchain was something that I knew had potential to impact a lot of people. So I started learning as much as I could about it with Hyperledger, Ethereum, so I hopefully, I'm actually was going to join it, but I'm hopefully going to get certified as a Hyperledger Fabric administrator through the Linux Foundation. So I'm working on that. I took the test the first time, didn't do well. It was a little bit odd with in the questions and everything. Just it was difficult. It was the most difficult test I've ever taken. But I'm hoping to take it before the year's out again. I'm gonna pass it.
I can
So
confirm it is very hard.
yeah. Yeah, I wasn't expecting that. Yeah, so I'm gonna hit it. I know now what that was the whole point. I think of that of that initial test was like, so you can see what it's like, because no one knew it was the first, it was the first time they had offered it. So now I know what to study and how to study is more important.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It is. That's the benefit of the first fail. Let's call it that. That you know now what you have to focus to learn and retake a test. Because I don't know now if they do if they do it again. But the first time there was a voucher for the certification. So if you fail the first time, you can try another time
Yeah.
with the system. Okay, that's so it's good. All right, that
Yeah.
you can try again. But it's hard.
Awesome. Thank you, Derek. Next, Ido, and then I can finish up.
Hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. So, my name is Ido. Ido is 3 syllables and 5 words, which is very strange because that's a very high number of syllables for the number of letters. So I usually give anybody outside Nigeria the shortcut. Just take the first 2 letters, ID, and ignore the rest. ID has been my nickname since childhood. Almost all of my colleagues, clients, friends outside Nigeria just call me ID. So the shortcut is ID, and it's perfectly acceptable. And if you want to do it right, just think Ido, do me, Ido. Slightly melodious, but hey, that's me. Like I said earlier, I earned this gray hair, sleeping many, having many sleepless nights, coding, writing code back in the days. I remember when .NET Framework came out in 2003. I was one of the first people to jump on the bandwagon. C# was a brand new language back in the day. It's been a good journey. I've kind of evolved, and more recently, businesses, their business outcomes, they think that I can tinker with developer brains. So I coach developer teams nowadays. That's what I do. So I'm more focused nowadays on the product/business side of technology solutions, ensuring that the tech teams produce the business outcomes as intended, rather than building technology, like I said earlier, for the sake of technology. So that's who I am. My particular interest in Hyperledger is slightly romantic, but really, in reality, comes out of my belief, my personal belief, that blockchain specifically presents perhaps the best opportunity for Africa with our current gap in technology, in infrastructure, most notably technology infrastructure. Blockchain perhaps presents to us the best opportunity to close that gap with the rest of the world. For instance, in the rest of the world, and someone like Derek can probably confirm, there are systems that have been built with other architectures, quote unquote, other paradigms, other development paradigms. Take, for instance, systems that have been built on NT architecture, relational database architecture. And so introducing blockchain will naturally be met by some kind of resistance. In Africa, because, partly due to corruption and other forces, those systems do not exist. Perhaps we are the best people to introduce Web 3.0, blockchain. And if you think about the space of blockchain, the global space, which of the blockchain framework or ecosystems is business ready from day one? From the moment you pick it up, is it ready for business, ready for enterprise? Is it ready for government institutions? That's Hyperledger. I mean, compare it with any of the others, and you naturally come to that conclusion that Hyperledger is ready for business, almost ready for deployment from day one. You know, so that's how I got here, and together with Umar and Mila, we coordinate actions for Hyperledger across the African continent. I am based in Nigeria. I work with another gentleman called Uchenna, and together we run the Nigeria chapter as well. So I hope I haven't taken too much of your time, but that's me. Thank you very much.
Awesome. I can finish. Thank you for that explanation. So my name is Mila from Nairobi. Why I'm into Hyperledger is, as Ido was mentioned, it's a business-oriented blockchain as opposed to others like Ethereum and Bitcoin, which are more of crypto and which people most times like see as frauds. So like this is is more for business, and it can be quote unquote privatized as opposed to like other blockchains. So that is why I am there. And also I used one of the products for a final year project, and I believe it actually it did it did go well, because it was a blockchain, and at the same time it was limited to who can actually access it. So that is my interest in blockchain. And as Ido was mentioned, for Africa, you find that there is the issue of lack of systems for accountability. So I believe we are at a good place to be able to introduce such systems. Yeah, so that is it on my end. So I'd like to thank each and every one of you for being in attendance for all the 2 hours. I'm thankful to have had you guys here. Thank you. Yeah, so I guess that is, also thank you, Umar, for the elaborate explanation and modeling of our solution. Thank you very much.
For the great tool, though.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Yes, it is a good tool. Thank you, Miller, for organizing all this and for keeping the process going, because it is a really important and long process we have to make to have a prototype. And so thank you, and you all.
Umar, just in brackets, we are only 2 guys who can speak French here, unless the other guys would say otherwise.
J'ai la chance alors. Moi, je parle français couramment, c'est ma première langue, mais je me débrouille pas en anglais aussi. So that was for the English-speaking guys.
Let's not confuse these guys.
I have 40% of the French, so just be careful.
I've done the group, so I'm looking forward to insightful discussions in the group. Planned for.
Awesome.
Cheers, guys.
Awesome. Cheers. Till next time.
Let's do that.
See you next.
Awesome.